Anyway, it's really a pleasure to be here. Carnegie Mellon University did a very cool study a couple years ago, and I thought I'd share it with you because it bears repeating here, but it's not just for job seeking, it's not for transition, it's for life in general, but also on the job itself. So we're going to throw out this. Here's what they wanted to find out. What accounts for long-term success in any career? And they looked at a whole host of different industries, everything from accounting, banking, sales, healthcare, just all over the place. And they tried to reverse engineer the men and women who are really successful. Like, what did they do that maybe other folks didn't do? And so here's what they found. First of all, they found that success is a big yellow ball. Okay, so if that's, and by the way, if you're over here, I'm sorry, I'm going to be blocking you a lot. So if you want to move, it's up to you. And I'll do a lot of this stuff too. So anyway, I won't. No, but what they did find, and this was surprising, at least when you first hear it, they found that long-term success in any profession is only about 15%, 15% technical skills. Now, at first you might think, well, whoa, slow down there, Mr. Fancy Pants, which, by the way, was my nickname in high school. Bad memories. But what they meant was being a really awesome, salesperson, or a really good, computer analyst, or whatever it is. And you might think, wait, shouldn't that be 100%? But think about it this way. Go back to, say, any either year in college or any kind of schooling you ever had. We can all think of people we sat next to who are awesome at really good, really smart, really talented, really everything. But if you have to spend more than 5 minutes with them in any kind of situation, you almost would rather jab a fork in your eye, right? Just being around that person is just, it's painful. So what they did find was fully 85% of long-term success in any career is people skills. And that sounds so soft and gushy and kumbaya and let's group hug, that sort of thing. But what they mean are things like your ability to communicate well, your ability to adjust your style to whoever, let's say, your boss is, or your ability to handle transitions. You used to work on this account, and now you're over on this one. This one was really cool, and you love the team. This is the big loser group somehow. Whoa, what? So when you get put with them, but the better you can adjust your approach and your attitude to that new assignment, the better off you'll be. So today we're going to be talking about mainly this 85% stuff. And I was saying to a couple folks before the session here, this is not just for job seeking and transition and that sort of stuff. This is life type of thing. This is when you meet somebody at an association event, or you meet somebody at a neighborhood whatever, or let's say you volunteer at Habitat for Humanity, or whatever you do in your spare time. This is the kind of stuff that if you do this well, it will enhance all the other things. And let's just go ahead and assume for fun you guys are really good at this part. You're really good technically there, that's great. But how can we enhance this part of it? And what's neat about the stuff I'm talking about today, at least I think, is this isn't just made up stuff. This isn't things that, this is a neat thought, I'm just going to throw it out to you. Everything I'm talking about is based in research, in scientific inquiry, peer-reviewed journals, that sort of stuff. So I'm going to be giving you solid information. Are you taking a picture, by the way? Okay. Can I do one of these? Thank you. And how about, can we give a quick Sears catalog? No. So anyway, okay, here we go. Introverts rejoice, by the way. I want to throw it out. And it doesn't really matter if you are or not, but the cool thing is when you think about first impressions and networking and talking to other folks, admittedly, if we can divide the world into, there's introverts and extroverts. Introverts are folks who spending time with people drains them. It's not like, yay, it's more like, oh my gosh, you got to be killing me. It really drains their battery. Whereas extroverts are more like, hey, people, slap them on the back and let's talk and yuck it up and that sort of thing. It does energize them. So the cool stuff is, and most of the stuff I'm talking about today certainly is, yay, extroverts, whatever, but really good news for introverts. In other words, there's ways to engage and talk to people in a way that will not drain your battery as much, where you can actually put the focus on other people. You can actually ask better questions. You can get them talking, and it doesn't have to be this life-draining experience. You go home and, oh my gosh, I need a shower and a massage, or that sort of thing. So this is hopefully good news for all folks anywhere in the spectrum, but especially introverts. So I love you. Thanks for coming. Okay. By the way, the most important part of your handout, if you don't mind, and I did count it up. If you fill in everything, all the blanks, I'm a big fill in the blank guy. I think it's like 32 words total. So it's like, hopefully it's not too much. But so for those who want to be interactive, you can write a lot of stuff. For those of you who are very minimalist, okay, it's 32 words. Anybody can do it. But the most important part of your entire handout, by the way, is this elongated kind of Tylenol-shaped area here. And that is for you to write down what your number one takeaway is today. There's actually a study done almost 20, 25 years ago by BYU. that looked at people who want to make any kind of behavior change. Let's just say whatever. They want to start working out. They want to start doing this. They want to start eating better, whatever the thing they might want to do. And they found if in the one group, if they wrote down what they wanted to do, like literally just, I want to start doing this, and they told just one person what they want to do, so written it down and then now told them what they want to do, the chance of it actually happening double. So I want to have us come here and we have a lovely time together and hope, I promised myself I wouldn't cry. We're going to have this lovely time. Thank you. I'll be here till 11:30. But I also want you to walk away today, not just with newfound knowledge, but newfound behavioral skills you can apply and start doing. And I'm going to cover dozens and dozens of things you can't do at all. So I want you to be thinking of all the stuff we covered today. What's the one thing you want to start doing? Write it down. You have a chance just to share it with someone next to you, et cetera, et cetera. And by the way, on my evaluation, giving your email address is completely voluntary. It is not something you have to do. It's just if you want to, great. I have a free newsletter I send out on becoming a more dynamic communicator and the stuff I'm talking about today. I would love to have you on that list, but if not, completely understand. I didn't want anyone to feel like they have to fill that out. Okay, so here's what we're going to talk about. First impressions, what they're all about, the 5 gifts everybody wants no matter what, building relationships in general, and then here's the really cool part at the end, how to go viral offline. All right, that's right. Okay. So this whole idea of how can you talk about what you do, especially in your transition, so that you can get people activated and interested to say, oh my gosh, she has something of value, or this guy has something to say, versus just, I know you've heard the term transitional phrase and that sort of thing. You don't have to say, I'm between jobs. It's not something you have to do. You can describe what you do in a more engaging way so you can start to paint a positive picture in other people's minds about what you do, regardless if you're actively doing it right now, but that's what you do. That sort of thing. So it's kind of a fun little, cost nothing, but it's amazing how when you talk about what you do in a more engaging way, you get people thinking about you more positively, and it can really spread to some good stuff. Okay, by the way, this is my cell phone number, and I give it out for one main reason. I'm lonely. No, okay. No, I'm kidding. People are like, creepy. No, happily married. It's all good. 18 years. But no, I do want to give this out because in a group of this size, if let's say you have a question, a comment, a concern, whatever it is, vicious personal attack, whatever, please, I want you to go ahead and feel free to text me in the middle so I know your phone's still on. I think we've moved away from turn your phones off. No one does that anymore. But if you want to go ahead and text me a question, or let's say, heaven forbid, you're driving home today and you go, oh my gosh, I wish I would have asked this. You can call me or text me. I'm happy to give back. It's not as though at 11:30 I turn into a pumpkin and I go off into the the sunset, that sort of thing. So anyway, and then by the way, for you people feeling really randy, this is my, thank you very much, this is my Twitter handle, if you will. And I want to say something very clear. I was early adapter, so I got my name. Didn't do any numbers, and that's lovely. But there's also a Steve Hughes, who's actually an Australian comedian. He used to be a drummer for a band called Thrash Lord. And he looks exactly opposite of me. He's got long hair, beard. He's really rough. He's kind of blue. And what's interesting, I'm not afraid to say this, I will put videos of myself doing stuff or things like this online. And then his fans will go to my YouTube channel and go, this guy sucks, Where's the real Steve Hughes? I'm like, I'm a Steve Hughes, So anyway, so I have to share one little thing because it, I don't know, kind of makes me laugh. Is one time he, one of his followers, if you will, said, this guy sucks so bad. And he said, I hope you get testicular cancer. I know, hello. So, and usually I've heard you're not supposed to respond to internet trolls. They say don't ever, don't give them the benefit. But I couldn't let that one go. So I wrote back, I said, by the way, it was like, Devil 715, whatever his name was or something. Interesting. And I said, does this mean you want me to take you off our Christmas card list? And then actually another guy wrote back and says, actually, you're funny in your comments and you're on your video. So anyway, what can you do? So you try. But anyway, that's the deal there. So glad to have you. So again, and there's also my number, my office number. Don't try to text to that because that's like a landline. That won't work. Anyway, but that's the one you want. Okay, so this is also a very interactive session today. So I got my first one. Where'd you get your tie? No, I was kidding. No, someone said, thanks for coming. That's very nice. Okay. I want us to take just a second. And again, this will be just for fun. This will not be on the final. Don't worry. Oh, hello. Can we have that removed? Sorry. I want you to get into groups of 3 just for a second. If you don't, so I don't really care where, but just somehow you may have to spin around, you may have to move or whatever. This is the hardest part of your whole day, especially folks who are spread out. But if you don't mind getting groups of 3, we're going to do a quick little, like a 5-minute little, kind of a fun little game here, if you will. So try and get groups. If we have an uneven number, 4 is okay, but I prefer 3. Well, I'll tell you what to do. Don't do anything yet. Just get in groups of 3 first. But it's a good group. You guys get up and you move around. Some people are like, what do we do? It's like, yeah. So very nice. Now, before we actually start talking, and if anybody needs, are you a floater? Oh, I think I have water. Oh, yes, I do. Thank you. Oh, it's great value, by the way. It's great value. What I want you to do, if you don't mind, is in just a second, I want you to introduce yourself, because it's always creepy to do an exercise without knowing who the people are. Like, who's that guy? So introduce yourself in just a second. But then also I want you within the group of 3, or dare I say 4, I think we have some 4s, is find out whose birth date, not birth year, birth date falls 1st, 2nd, and 3rd throughout the year, or 4th. So starting in January, going through December, whose birth, just order of basically month, day kind of thing. So go ahead and take about 30 seconds, introduce yourselves, and find out birth date order throughout the year, and then we'll reconvene. Okay, here's what I'd like you to do, if you don't mind. I'd like everyone in the group, whoever's birthday fell first throughout the year, go ahead and raise your hand just for a second. Okay, you are, and hands down. So, you are yourself. Now, before you get too excited and say, that's easy, Jerry Seinfeld played himself on a show called Seinfeld for 9 seasons. They won tons of Emmys, but do you know how many Emmys he won specifically? 0. He personally won no Emmys, and he said, now he really wanted to know from the writers, why don't I win? What's the deal? And they said, you weren't believable enough. And he said, I'm playing myself. So it's like, come on. So anyway, it's harder than you think. Now, okay, person whose birthday fell 2nd throughout the year, if you don't mind, raise your hand. Okay. You are person, so by the way, the first person themselves was person A, who you raised your hand just now, you're person B, or you're person A's boss. Now, all right. Now, before you get too excited and you make them come in on Saturday, or make them do another cover sheet on their TPS report, or whatever it might be, I want you to, I'll tell you what your motivation is in a second. Like, where am I coming from? What's going on? Okay, I'll tell you in a second. Then whoever, if you're in a group of 3 or if you're a group of 4 and you haven't raised your hand yet in each group, go ahead and raise your hand if you don't mind. Okay, you are what I'm calling, not just an observer, I'm calling a cunning observer. What I mean by that is, as this exercise goes on, if you have a pen like this, go, wouldn't have done that. Go ahead and, yeah, oh, interesting. And I want you to kind of make notes. Anyway, so I just want you to observe what goes on. Yes, question? Oh, you have 5? Okay. Okay, if you have 5, wow, that's crazy. Yeah, we can do some shift, pardon? Yeah, if you're in a group of 5, feel free to go to one of the other, yeah. So if we have a group of 5, it'd be great. At least someone go over there, maybe someone go over there, and then we'll have, everybody's happy. Yeah, I know math wasn't my best thing. I was a French lit major, so I don't know. Anyway, so if you have 5, just let there be 2 observers, if that's fine, okay? So now here's your assignment, if you don't mind. And observers, I want you to observe and just play along. I pretend you're not even there. Everybody's happy. Okay, so first, by the way, am I moving too much for the camera at all? Am I not? Okay, because I have cat-like reflexes. Okay, so person A, here's what I want you to do. I'm going to give you about 90 seconds to do this. I want person A to grab a pen, any pen, doesn't matter, some pen. So person A, you need to get some kind of a pen. Okay, your job, person A, is to convince your boss, person B, that he or she needs this specific pen. Now, before the boss says, oh, thanks for the pen, need exercise, person B, your boss, your motivation, where you're coming from, you are anti-pen. Okay? You don't want no pen. Keep that pen away from me. So you now have a job, person A, to convince them they need your specific pen, okay? And observers just see what happens, okay? And start convincing. All right, folks, let's go ahead and wrap it up. That's pretty good. I figure this is like one of those final exams where the teacher says, pencils down. If you don't know the answer now, it's not going to happen. So here's what I want. So observers, if you don't mind, I'm going to tell you what the 3 things I want you to comment on. So I'm going to give you the 3 things first, and then I'll ask for your input if you don't mind. So observers, I want you to tell me in a second, if you had to add up the total amount of time people were talking, who did the most talking? Person A with the pen, or the boss, or was it maybe somewhere in the middle? Okay, so that's question 1. Question 2 is, did person A with the pen find out at all or ask the boss why he or she is anti-pen? That's pretty critical. In other words, I just said it's key. The person doesn't like this pen or doesn't want a pen. Did you find out why they're anti-pen? That's a pretty juicy piece of information. And then lastly, and I'll ask this in a moment, is did they do anything creative to make the pen sound awesome? Like I've had people say, hey, this pen has been in space, or it's signed landmark legislation or something. It's been to the moon or something, whatever. So anyway, so if you don't mind, quick show of hands. Yeah. So show of hands, who, observing-wise, Who saw person A with the pen do more talking than their boss? If you don't mind, big show of hands. Okay, perfect. Okay, you fell into my evil plan. Okay, now, did any of the folks, okay, any groups have about 50-50 at all once in a while? Okay, not bad. Okay, a couple. Did anyone have, heaven forbid, the boss talk more than the... Now, very nice. Now, if you don't mind me asking, so for the camera, those following along at home, the vast majority had the person A talk the most. A few had even, and one or two had the boss talk more. Now, curious, if you don't mind, how did that happen? Did the boss just start talking, or did the person ask the boss why they were anti-pen? Okay. So the answer was Mary likes to talk. Now here's the beauty. It's the boss. She can do whatever she wants. She can start talking whenever she likes. So yeah, that's part of the fun. All right, did anyone else, okay, shifting into the other question, early on ask the boss or say, oh my gosh, I'm getting nowhere. Boss, why don't you like this pen? Did that happen at all? Did anyone, okay, early on? And you had about 50-50 talking, right? Now, just curious, what did the person say why they didn't want the pen?
Well, basically because he doesn't have a pen right now. He could use a pen, but he has an electronic device that he can take down notes.
Okay.
The main thing is the person A, forgot I mentioned that he could fall in water, but she did mention about getting mugged or something like that too.
Oh yeah, good point. Yeah, so nice, good. Loss aversion is a very good motivator, right? You can get mugged, or you can get lost, or dropped in water. Very nice. Did anyone else ask the person why they're anti? Yeah.
I didn't have to ask because he told me up front.
Oh wow.
He's an accountant. He works with figures. And he uses a pencil.
So here's the tough part then. If you just found out, hey, I'm an electronics guy, or I just got this cool pad from Michael, or I'm an accountant, I can't have a permanent kind of thing. You're now kind of in a pickle. I mean, because I said kind of winning the game was convincing they need this, and you just found out they really don't need what you have. Anyway, yes. Okay. Oh, very nice. So, and did that come in handy? Okay, good. All right. So she came from a career that had a lot of overtime. So you had to find creative ways to say no, like, oh my gosh, my football injury, or it's Arbor Day, or whatever it might be. Okay. Very nice. All right, now then, how about this? Did anybody do anything creative? This is always kind of the fun part. Did anybody do anything creative to make the pen sound glorious? What did they say? Nice. So the pen comes with a trip to Maui. That's not too shabby. Okay, very nice. Who else had something cool?
This pen never runs out of ink.
Oh, the perpetual pen never runs out of ink. Now, I was in a group, it was a smaller group, I was in Phoenix and doing this, and I had to be the boss, so I had to volunteer and sit down with the group, and the person said, now, let me tell you, sir, thank you. They said to me, if you get this pen, it will grow hair. Now, before I got too excited, I said, where? So anyway, and I did have one, I have to say, this wasn't true, but someone did say, and this is a tough objection to overcome, they said, why don't you want this pen? It's a perfect pen. And the person said, because my grandmother was killed by a pen. Now, that's a tough one. It wasn't really true. It's like, oh yeah, don't get too sad. But it would be hard to say, okay, you got to have this pen, and say, every time I see this pen, it reminds me of Nana. Anyway, so here's the point, and I want to kind of summarize with this. And if you don't mind, feel free to be comfortable, but we're going to do a couple more group exercises. If you're happy in that kind of area, we're going to have it's easier than going back to where you were. You're upright, locked in learning positions. So here's kind of the point of this exercise. I've done this all over the country, in fact, in several other countries. And almost every single time the person A does the most talking, they don't do a good enough job, frankly, or they could do a better job of finding out why the boss is anti-pen. And do we have any veterans or any folks from, okay, very nice. Just to use a military example, if you spend all your time and effort and energy trying to convince someone of something they really don't want, and they've already expressed they don't want it, it's almost like fighting a battle on the wrong hill, or securing a piece of land that doesn't matter. And you might say, wait a second, I still have to convince them they need a pen. What you need to find out is what's important to them, what are their drivers, and then be the conduit to get them what they need, what they really want. So in other words, if the person over there is an electronics person, maybe if you could be now the person helping get a stylus and not a pen would be a better use of your time and his or her. It's almost like around the holiday season, I love the example of of Miracle on 34th Street, which if you remember from the original movie, which is better than the recent ones. So here's Santa at Macy's, and he was just told by his manager, you got to push this toy, push these toys. And then in comes a mom with her son who wants something they don't actually sell. Instead of trying to shove a toy down the kid's throat, he says, why don't you go down to Gimbel's, here's what the price is, or go to our competition and get them what they need. And at first, you'd think, wait, he's sending people away from our store. That's crazy talk. But then they got amazing loyalty. Why? Because the Santa was more interested in the customer and what he or she wanted, or what the mom needed, or what the kid wanted, than trying to make a quick buck. So my other little conclusion here is, I don't have the quote written up here, but I have it memorized, is by a guy named Howard Gardner, who is a professor of cognition at Harvard. Okay, so he's a professor of cognition at Harvard, so a pretty smart guy. I have to be honest, if I met him at a party, he'd be like, what do you do? I help people look and sound smart when they talk. What do you do? I'm a professor of cognition at Harvard. I'd be like, I'm going to get some more punch. You know, what can I possibly tell him? But Howard Gardner is at the forefront of really unpacking and reverse engineering, almost demystifying, what is the process that goes on to have someone change his or her mind? In other words, their mind was set to do this, something happened here, and now they think differently about a subject or a topic or an issue or whatever it might be. So what happened there? And so here's his quote, which I think is kind of interesting. He said, if I could dispense just one morsel of advice to mind changers, that's you all with a pen or anything you're trying to do, it's to spend less time trying to convince them of a new perspective. In other words, I'm right, you're wrong, and this is why it matters. And spend more time trying to understand and thereby neutralize the resistances. So the key thing is less time trying to convince them of a new perspective, I'm right and you're wrong, and more time trying to understand the resistances and then neutralizing them. So think about the resistance as almost having a 5-alarm chili the night before with a couple of burrito chasers, and now you got some issues going on gastrointestinally. And then he's saying, I would try to be that Tums tablet that comes in and neutralizes it. Didn't say annihilate, destroy, pound down, wear down. He said simply understand and then neutralize. So if he were doing this exercise with us together, I'm guessing if I gave him 90 seconds to convince someone they needed a pen, and he knows in his mind they don't want the pen, he'd probably spend 70 or 80 seconds of that time together saying, hey, how do you normally write? Do you like this color pen? Do you not like pens at all? Do you just buy a box of pens? Where are you coming from? Oh, you're an electronics guy. Well, what do you do? Do you need another charger? I mean, he would have been that kind of guy to find out those things, and then kind of becomes that Santa Claus and actually has the best interest in mind. And again, thank you for playing along. I did kind of set you up for, I defined winning as a certain thing, when really, if we think about winning, is getting the other person what he or she needs, and you being that conduit. And I guarantee if you do that in almost every human reaction, your stock will rise on a whole variety of levels. Again, not just work-wise, but also personally, that sort of thing. So questions, comments at all, feedback at all? Just want to throw it out there before we move along. Okay. Yes? Exactly. In fact, we're going to talk about that in just a second. So the comment was, that's what she wants. In fact, same thing for all you bosses. So we all focus just now on the person A. Who are my bosses, real quick? Raise your hand if you don't mind. Okay, you're sitting there and you're talking to this person who works for you, and you've just basically told them, or I told them, that that I don't want something. And here they come and knock, I'm trying to shove this down your throat. I just said I don't want that. So you're right. So in our everyday interactions of life, again, with neighbors, at the grocery store, at church, wherever you find yourself, if we could have more that outlook of how can I help this person first, and then maybe there's something for me on the back end that's nice. In fact, we're going to study here in just a second. In fact, I think it's in my next slide. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is this. What work, we already kind of did that, is what makes a good first impression. This is actually from a very cool longitudinal study by Damaris and White. And they wrote this up in a book and a couple other articles several years ago. And here's what these people did, and this really gets back to what you just said there a moment ago. They looked at thousands upon thousands of first encounters, everything from blind dates to people meeting each other at a business association to things like today. They would have like secret cameras up in the corner, and they'd get your permission, of course. And they'd see how people talked to each other, who talked, who asked questions, who didn't. Then they'd go up afterward and say, hey, Frank, what do you think of Bob? Hey, what do you think of Sandy? What were their impressions? And all this kind of stuff. And they took this data and they just put it in a giant blender on puree for a while. Okay, and then they spit it out. And what they basically did, as best they could, is scientifically find out what makes a good first impression and what makes not such a good impression? And are there some universal things that people do that either are automatic turn-offs or automatic turn-ons? And that having been said, are there things you can do then to actively be a better architect of how people see you? In other words, when you meet someone, whether you want to or not, you're going to, almost like atoms bouncing together, you're going to meet someone and you're going to make an impression on them one way or the other. But how can you be a better architect of that first impression, of that image? And what can you do to make it happen? So if you don't mind, flip to the next page there, and we should have a nice little design, first impressions, this kind of diamond-y kind of thing. And here's what they found. They basically found that there are 4 different focuses or perspectives or dynamics that people had, and along a continuum. And one was not so good, one gets a little bit better, and then one was really awesome. And I want to talk to you about what people did, again, amongst these thousands of encounters, these interviews, these feedback mechanisms, these surveys. And then, oh my goodness, do I do that or not? And hopefully we don't. Or if you do, what can you modify to make sure it doesn't happen anymore? So here's the first thing they found. The people that made the worst first impression consistently had this kind of overall focus in their, if they could kind of take, like you take a washcloth and you wring out the very last couple of drops. If they could take a person and wring them out, this would be kind of the drops that fell out. The drops would be, how do I feel about myself? Like, oh, do I feel better about this encounter? Do they like me? Just me. Almost like, think about it as a black hole. This is a thing where you automatically, everything that happens just kind of sucks back to you. And this sort of thing. So it kind of reminds me where we used to live. We had a neighbor who, and I couldn't help it, I'm maybe a little mischievous. Everything we brought up, no matter what, she would find a way to spin it back towards herself. It's okay. And you learn with it. We kind of smile. We all know those kinds of people. And we probably do it more than we want to realize. But one time I said, okay, I'm going to make up a story and see if she can take what's a quasi-tragedy and see if she can turn it into about herself. So I just was joking around. I said, by the way, my daughters and I were out in the backyard. We were playing hatchet tag, which we weren't. Okay, it's like you throw a hatchet at each other, you're it, so anyway. So I was just joking. Of course, we were kidding around and said we were playing hatchet tag, and I lopped her arm off. It was stupid. I shouldn't have done it. And I was just kind of being silly, and if I could redo it. And then, lo and behold, she said, oh my gosh, hatchet reminds me of, I went to an auction the other day, and they had some beautiful Native American war pieces. And I thought, you've got to be kidding me. I mean, she took, and I was joking about my daughter losing an arm, and she, in a matter of seconds, was able to spin around to herself. She went to an auction about Native American whatever. So, but there's people like that, or let's say, anybody here not from St. Louis area, just for fun? Anybody from Chicago area at all? Okay, very nice. Woohoo. Okay, let's say you meet somebody just in a couple days from now. Meet them from, hey, I'm from Chicago. Hey, I'm from Chicago too. That's a nice little connection. That's a cool little, because it's not very common. It's not, where'd you go to high school? It's like, hey, I'm from Chicago, me too. And then the person here would quickly take that as an opportunity to spin it back themselves. Oh my gosh, I love Chicago. I'm Chicago, all about Chicago. In other words, they would kind of start just kind of drawing it all back to themselves. And meanwhile, this poor guy over here is like, I just mentioned I'm from Chicago, and you are too. And now it's all about you as a conversation. So again, that's kind of where their mindset was. Now, getting a little bit better, but still not where you want to be, people who did slightly better were folks who had this idea of, how do they feel about me? So this is 100% about themselves. This gets slightly better. It still winds up back on you, but it's how do they feel about me? Do they like what I had to say? Do they like what I'm wearing? Are they enjoying the conversation with me? Am I doing a good job? That kind of thing. And again, these people universally, when the other person was asked about them, people said universally, I don't like being around people like that. Those are not my kind of people, because just again, they're a time sucker, they're a focus sucker, they're all about themselves. And again, we do it unwittingly, we don't mean to. Here's where it starts to get a little bit better. The people who had this, how do I feel about them, starts to get a little bit warmer. In other words, so it's still how do I feel, me, my feelings, kind of Dr. Phil, but at least it's like about them. Do I like them? Am I enjoying the conversation with them? That sort of thing. So it's getting a little bit better. That's not bad. But the pièce de résistance, again, I'm using my French, thank you. The real important thing, where if you want to do a really good job, the people who had a very good first impression, universally across any encounter, were the people who had this overall focus in their approach, which was, how do they feel about themselves? Or how does he feel about himself? How does she feel about herself? Their overall goal was, after having spent 5 minutes on this planet with me, are they happy they had that encounter? Not because of me, but just are they better off? And think about it right now. In fact, we'll do a fun little exercise if you don't mind. This is where the whiteboard comes in handy. Okay. Well, just for fun, I want you to, in your groups there, I'm just going to give you, this is a very quick exercise, just for about 20 seconds, maybe 30 seconds in your group. I want you to think of people who, when you encounter them, and you just, or put it this way, people in your lives, and let's go beyond family, because family messes it all up. Just say acquaintances, non-blood relatives, or non-blood friends of yours. I want you to brainstorm in your group for about just 20 seconds. Think of people who you just can't stand to be around. Like they just, after you spent time with them, it's like you feel like they've sucked the lifeblood out of you, right? You have to take a shower, right? It's just painful. It's just hard to be around these people. I want you to think of as many adjectives as you can think of about those people who are very hard to be around, okay? So 20-second brainstorm in your group and go. Just throw it out there. People you just can't stand to be around. If you don't mind, let's focus up here, and I'd love you to shout out just a couple of the words that came up. So what are some of the adjectives you guys threw out there? Know-it-all. Okay, know-it-all. Okay, I'll try to write large enough here. Okay. Those are fun people. You can never tell them anything they don't know already. What are some other things? Throw them out. Okay, complainer. Okay, narcissistic. That's a hard one to spell. Oops. Okay. By the way, there's no spell check, so sorry if I... okay. Okay, self-centered. Okay, closed-minded. Okay. Is it closed-minded, I think, right? Okay, how about a few more? Spirit sucker. Spirit sucker. And remember, this is a family program. Let's keep it. How about a couple more? These are great. Okay, backstabber and one-upper. Okay. And that's not drug-related. One-upper. Yeah, whatever you happen to say, I've done that twice as awesome, right? Okay. Backstabber. Okay, sorry. Obstinate. Okay, that's a really tough one to spell. Okay. Very nice. Okay, now. Obstinate. I hope that's good. Okay, now, I'm out of room, but argumentative, we'll put it right down there. Now, let's now do the exact same thing, but this time think about people you love to be around. Let's do it for people who you, again, non-family related, but people, when you spend time with this guy or this gal, just, gosh, I just love being around him. It's so cool or whatever. Do the same thing. Give me the adjectives that describe. So go ahead and do your 20-second brainstorm. Same thing for people who you love being around. All right, now that's good. Let's go ahead and, again, rapid fire crazy. We could almost say the opposite of all these. That's great, but I'd love to hear what some of your words are. What are some of the words you threw out? For people you love to be around. Pardon? Okay. I thought you said good looking, because that'd be awesome. Sorry, no, good listener, which I just wasn't. So hold on. Okay, hold on. Good listener. Okay. Yes, someone else had their... Okay, funny. Sorry, what? Problem solver. Yeah, how about happy? Sorry. Happy. Positive. We'll do that over here. And I'm going to do a little happy smiley face in there. Okay. How about energizing. Sorry, what? Motivate. Okay, yeah. So energizing. Motivator. Okay. Interesting. We have a couple more. I'm sorry, what? Okay, but yeah, so gives energy, let's just say. Sure, and optimistic. Okay, great. And unfortunately, we're now out of space. Okay. Optimistic. Okay. Now, here's the deal then. If you can think about it, the folks who were over here, certainly, but in the two top green boxes, you would probably imagine that they would have these kinds of adjectives would be the ones that describe them. And the folks over here are the ones who did a better job. But if you think about it, these things are all very, almost like a black hole, are very self-centered and about them. These folks are about the other person, that sort of thing. And so again, we kind of walked into that a little bit with the pen exercise, where you want to find out what's really going on with the other person, what do they need or not need, how can I be that conduit to help them out. And so we're going to talk about the rest of the time today are things you can do to avoid this stuff and to be better over here, and that sort of thing. Questions, comments at all just before we move any I'm better check the big board in case someone texted something. Okay. Nothing. All right. Okay, cool. All right. How about that Rams game? Woohoo! That was amazing. I kept thinking, no, I can't do it again. It was 2 weeks ago. I watched that there. I couldn't believe I invested my life into that for a tie. Yeah, anyway. So I was very happy. All right, so let's now shift into, okay, this is all good. Who would you rather be? In other words, especially in the holiday season, when this guy shows up at your door, is it usually a good or a bad thing? Who doesn't love this guy, right? Especially if someone wanted you to have something, they wanted you to have it fast. That's awesome. Now, are they usually here to give or to take? Definitely, they're on the green side of things. Now, and again, I don't make any political comments here, but when you get something like this in the mail, are they usually here to give or take? Yeah. You know, it says, awesome, the IRS came and they gave me tons of money. No, so, and again, they're doing their job, so I'm not trying to say it's good, bad, or otherwise, but in general, they're coming to make sure maybe you didn't give enough, trying to take something away. These folks are here completely to give, and that's what I want your attitude to be if you can, and to have the focus be on the other person. So regardless of what's happening, I don't care if you're meeting somebody, a networking lunch, or you're going for an interview or anything, when they sit down to talk to you, they have a certain set of needs and interests and drivers that's important to them, and it's your job to be this person to them. Even if, let's say, you've been dealt a bad hand recently, or you've had a million things go on, that doesn't matter, because to them, you're meeting them for the first time. You're the ones who's encountering them. It reminds me of, I'm not sure why I know this date, but when Justin Bieber came, October 25th, 8 o'clock, at the Scott Trade Center. But I don't know, I'm just saying. When you have a 13 and 14-year-old, that just happens. So when Justin Bieber comes to town, he has to make every screaming teenage girl there think this is the first time he's ever sung that song ever. He has to make sure, woohoo, it's awesome, even though he just did it in Kansas City the night before, and he'll do it in Chicago the next night. So that's what you have to do the same thing, is how can you, regardless of what's happened to you, how can you kind of get in the mode and the mood to be this type of a person? Because the more you do that stuff, I guarantee you, your stock will rise so fast in people's minds, and they will see you in a much more positive light, which we want to have happen. So let's look at the physical side of first impressions. So this is now on the flipping over here. And these are some things, again, based on some of what Damaris and White found, but also some stuff I found in my research. In general, if you do these kinds of things, these are things that people said, again, universally, these are what makes good first impressions. Okay, this is what really works. So the first one is, there it is. It's supposed to be a build, but it wasn't. So you can fill them in and we'll talk about them one at a time. Yeah, act surprised. So ask open-ended questions, smile, lean forward, nod occasionally, and get in the mood. So that should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 words total. It's not too much to write down. So we're filling out. If you're watching this, you're probably wondering, what's happening? They're all writing notes diligently. Okay. So now, here's the thing on open-ended questions. First of all, asking questions in general is better than not asking questions. We come in and we do too many declarative things about ourselves. It's a natural thing for us to talk about ourselves. In fact, Seinfeld did a good job of that. It seems like every time when Jerry or George had a problem, they'd go to talk to Newman about it, and somehow Newman would always spin every problem back to his unrequited love for Elaine. I don't know why, it just was kind of very funny. But it's very important stuff. So, but if you can ask questions, but more importantly, not, hey, like for instance, when I met people today, when things like, how often have you come here? Or, what brought you here this morning? Or that sort of thing. Versus, hey, what do how many times have you come? 3 times. Okay, great. It's better to ask an open-ended question where they can't answer with a yes or no or a quick, simple noun. So if you ask questions and get them talking, that will be a good thing. Let me say one thing out of caution, though, and this again on the introvert side of things. If you ask too many questions and never divulge yourself, that actually will go from being an awesome thing to kind of twist it around to being a negative thing, because the person will start to think, wait, they keep asking me all these questions. They haven't told me anything about themselves. Do they have a dead body in the trunk? Or, what's going on? Do they, what's happening? And it was just joking there, hopefully. So So it almost starts to feel like a Mike Wallace 60 Minutes kind of interview. You're just kind of hammering them. So ask questions, but when they ask you a question in return, feel free to answer that and answer it adequately. But then you can always end every time you have asked a question, this is true for interviewing, end that question, your answer with a question back to them. So the question might be, hey, what makes you want to maybe work here? I want to work here because blah, 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 blah. Hey, just curious, what made you want to come to work here? Get them talking. The more they can be talking, the better off you're going to be. Smiling, this is actually very interesting. We overestimate the amount of times we smile, like we think we smile more than we do. So I'm not saying you have to have a fake kind of a, hey, fake person. But a little more smile is kind of fun than just as you go through the, hi, I'm Steve. It's great to meet you. It's really cool to be here. Really just tickled. No, you can do the same. Hey, I'm Steve. It's nice to be here. What's interesting is survey after survey, when they have people on, let's say, giant phone banks or call centers, and they have just hundreds of people lined up and they're reading off scripts. Yes, sir, I'm sorry about your computer or whatever it might be, and they're answering your questions. They found that the men and women who read the exact same thing, but those who smile when they talk versus those who don't smile, exact same words. We're not talking any kind of editorial, just the exact same words. The smilers get rated more highly than those who don't. And the thought is there's a resonance that happens when you smile, when you talk on the phone, or let's say you're doing a quick phone interview, or someone's talking to you, you're trying to set up a meeting. If you smile when you talk versus you smile when you talk, there's a resonance, there's a melodious factor that comes along. So if at the very least, if you don't feel like it, smile while you're talking, and it will help you, all those kind of happy things will come along for the ride. Leaning forward was something that was interesting. And again, I want to be careful. Don't get up in their grill, as the kids like to say. Maintain safe, happy space. You don't want to, hey, how you doing? Good to see you. Don't make them think you need a breath mint or anything like that, okay? So, but if you can lean slightly forward, they're going to see that as interest is oh, that's kind of cool. If someone, I know no one here was the big winner of the $300 million Powerball, okay. I'm guessing if somehow someone knew with certainty what the numbers would be the next day to win $300 million, you would be like, yeah, just go ahead, whatever, give them to me. You'd be like, yeah, leaning forward, I want to hear what you have to say. I have to write those numbers down. What's the Powerball? That whole thing. So how can you lean forward and actually show them you're interested? Nod occasionally. Now, I want to be careful on this one. You nod too much, and that is interpreted as people not listening. So we've all been around people who are, it's okay to nod and smile and nod, that whole thing. But if you do too much of that, yeah, that sort of thing. If you do too much of that, they interpret that as you're just waiting to talk. You're almost like saying, would you please shut up because I can't wait to talk. Okay, so smiling and nodding once in a while is okay. But the, yeah. I had a friend who did that a lot, and I said, well, what are you doing there, man? I'm just trying to tell you a story. I just want to show you that I'm actively listening. Like, well, could you listen quieter? Because I can barely hear myself talk as you're listening. So just got to be careful. And then here's the last one, is the whole getting in the mood. And this, again, is the very toughest one because I feel like all these things are driven by your internal kind of perspective. And again, regardless of where you find yourself in a transition space or the difficult things that are happening, we've all been there. Let's say you have a fight with a loved one and you have to then go to like a wedding that same day. Like, hey, we're having a great time. So you can make yourself get into a mood just for a short period of time. But here's the thing, and we won't explore this too much, but what Damaris and White found was when people see you, they have very limited interaction with you. I mean, when they first meet you, think about it. If you have a whole lifetime, let's say we've been on this planet just on average and somewhere in the 30-plus years, just on average here. Okay, 30-plus years, that's great. That's a whole lifetime to explain and show and talk and show the full range of who you are. But if someone only meets you for a 5-minute sliver, a 5-minute little cutout of your life, they're going to take that 5-minute cutout and they're going to use it as a lens through which they see everything else you do. So if they see you as kind of a negative Nelly, let's say they just, something bad happened or you're late, you got a traffic ticket or whatever, like, oh, life sucks, it's awful. They're going to think you're a negative kind of a Eeyore, kind of everything's a bummer, kind of a person. Whether it's fair or not, but that's all they have to go on. They have limited data. Same thing if they see you do something nice or encounter, or you ever had this happen where you meet somebody at an event and they don't have name tags on, let's say, and then 10 minutes later you meet somebody else and say, hey, here's Sharon or here's Frank, and they remembered your name. Isn't that pretty awesome? You're like, oh my gosh, that person's awesome, right? Because they remembered your name. That's a good thing. You then start to think very positively about that person because they took the time to remember your name. They could be an ex-murderer. They're probably not, but who knows what their background is. But you have just a tiny little sliver. So my whole point is, these are the things through which people see you, And can you kind of be that architect to make sure you put them in line, you line them up as best you can? And again, the best part of these is not to try and fake, okay, smile, lean forward. No, that's not kind of the goal. It's if you genuinely have an interest in the other person, you care about them, you want to know what's going on, you have a focus on them, how do they feel about themselves, not me, but how do they feel about themselves after our encounter? If you have that going on, that's where the magic will happen, and the stuff will start to follow, almost like a train being pulled by a locomotive, that sort of thing. Questions, comments at all, thoughts on yes?
This all somewhat includes the other part is engaged participant and also that their HR is often overwhelmed by people they have to talk to every day, and HR personnel nowadays is the most senior personnel, so sometimes their skills not as proficient as they should be.
And so the question is, what then? How do you deal with that kind of a situation?
Yes, and as much as you might try to engage in all that, the other party might not be quite as sharp.
Yeah. So the comment was, what do you do, especially say in an HR situation, you're dealing with someone who they're not necessarily responsive, or they don't have the skills, or they're not that engaging. Like you're trying all this stuff, it's not working. My quick answer would be, run. No. No, my quick answer would be still to try the stuff because you can't control. There's a great book written almost like 15, 20 years ago called How to Deal with Difficult People. And you're like, all right, how do I deal with that person who I hate? And if you really boil the book down, it basically says change your response. Because you can't change other people, but you can change your response. So my thought is keep trying to do it. You're going to run into people who are brick walls. You're going to run into people who don't want to talk. You're going to run into people who are just, maybe they're having the worst day in the world and they don't want to engage in any way, or they don't even have the skill set to make it happen. I'd say still keep trying to do it because the alternative is if you don't, you wind up in that upper left quadrant of they're going to start to feel, whoa, wait, he's all about himself, that sort of thing. So just know that you can do everything right. This is where it's a lot more art than it is science. So it's based in science. You can try everything, but it's not exactly these three inputs equal these three outputs. So I would say almost like keep trying, keep throwing it out there, and just know, you know what? There's times when they're going to be chumps, or they're going to just not give it back to you, or they're going to just be that brick wall, and you still have to kind of go for it. It's like when I do my presentation skills training, I always talk about look people in the eye, make a full comment, and then move on to someone else. And the question comes up, well, what if I look at someone and they're looking down at their paper, or they're checking their phone or whatever? I would say, well, still look at them as though they're looking back at you and engage them. They may pick up, they may not, but then move on. Don't let them dictate to you how your eye contact should be. So I'd say the same thing would be true for the situation.
My name is Nick Abbott, and I am, by day I'm an IT consultant. And by night I'm a beer drinker. So I'm that advocate you're talking about.
Okay.
Now, before the game, we don't go into seats. We stand in the corridors, the concourse.
Okay.
And so there's a whole line of these beer vendors.
Okay.
Now, especially in Chicago, where it's like tons of beer vendors. And so, like, the fans will come in from the gates, and then they'll walk past a whole row of beer vendors. And by a factor of 2 to 1, the fans will go to one particular vendor.
Interesting.
And I'm like standing there, and I'm like, that fan just walked past me and went to that guy.
And
And I'm like, why? But I'm just listening to what you're saying, and I haven't figured out why it is.
he wasn't handing out money, was he? Okay. Now, well, okay, I'm guessing, okay, so the question was, he does beer vending by night, IT fabulousness by day, right? And he said there's certain beer vendors that before the game starts, where they go up and down the seats, the people come in, and there's some beer vendors who just seem to just attract business like a magnet, which is kind of interesting. And I guess the quick answer is either they have a prior relationship, which is nice, but I'm guessing on some level that beer vendor has made the selling of the beer about the other person and not about himself, which is kind of interesting. It reminds me, actually, I heard this a couple years ago. It's very cool. The number one 7-Eleven, in fact, the number one per capita coffee sales in the country was in a store in a like a middle class section of I believe it was Brooklyn in New York. And they tried to again reverse engineer. Why do they sell so much coffee? Why of all places? It's not like it's not Starbucks. It's not imported Sumatra beans or something. It's 7-Eleven coffee. It's lovely. And what they found was the manager there was a woman who made it her job to know everybody's name who came in to get coffee. almost like from Cheers. So, hey, Norm, everybody, you want to go, everybody knows your name. That's a place you want to go. So people would go and bypass better coffee outlets for the 7-Eleven coffee because when they walked in, Sharon or Janice or whatever her name was knew their name. How's it going? Hey, how's your mother? How, this sort of thing. So she found a way to sell more. So here's a tangible output of more profitable sales, higher per capita selling based on a very soft, gushy 85% people skill thing. So it'd be fun. It'd be cool. Position yourself if you can next to that high volume vendor and just see what he or she does. I bet they found a way to sell beer and make it about the other person and make it more fun, make it more enjoyable. It's also, if you're flying Southwest Airlines, here they're giving these same flight attendants are doing boring, mandated FAA scripted stuff they have to do that, frankly, United and Northwest and Delta and all this stuff in American make it very boring, like you would jab a fork in your eye, right? And yet here you have Southwest Airlines does the exact same thing, but they make it more enjoyable. And I've noticed USA Today's get lowered, phones get holstered, people are leaning forward, and you know what they're going to say. It's not like, whoa, what? How does that work? In fact, I do a fair amount of flying. It was interesting just the other day. This one kind of made me chuckle. The woman up there was saying, now, ladies and gentlemen, here's how your seatbelt works. Insert the metal clasp, close it tight, and then pull it taut. It works just like every other seatbelt you've ever had. If you have trouble using this, you probably shouldn't be out in public unsupervised. Right? I mean, in other words, what they're doing is they're making fun of, wait, you're telling us how to use a seatbelt? Huh? Do you ever see someone go, what? Dang it. Shoot. Darn it. No one, so they're recognizing what goes on. In fact, I asked a flight attendant once, he said they are required. They can't change even one prepositional phrase of that. They have to say it exactly as scripted. Now, they can do commentary on what they're saying, and they can have fun, but they have to get all those words out in the right order, that sort of thing. So it'd be interesting. In fact, now I want to go to Rams game just to see these high-end beer vendors and what they're doing differently. Yeah.
Glenn and I both commented, we've heard that same phrase from South, so it may be part of their script.
So what's funny, it could be from their script. Now, what's smart about it is once they do something that's funny, then they'll pack it in and they will try to say it on the next flight. I can also tell, by the way, when I see a flight attendant on Southwest and said, "You're a recent hire from another airline," I can just tell. You can tell they got too much of the old negativity in them. It's like they don't have the fun spirit of goodness. Other comments or thoughts on? Yes. That's true, right? Very much so. In fact, I'll tell you. I'll do it right now. It's just fun. We'll probably take a break in about 15 minutes, right? We need a little break. Just making you sit for 2.5 hours is a little painful. As awesome as I am. Woo! No, sorry. I can pull the hammy. So, okay, what's interesting is Cornell did a study in the 60s. This was actually, I thought, pretty fascinating, about the idea of the power of a gift or a favor. So you talk about energy and that sort of thing. So if we could boil it down to a gift or a favor done for someone, which is, again, others focused. And they wanted to measure, when you do something nice for somebody else, is there a tangible way to see, does it come back and how does it work? Because you're right, if you meet somebody and you have all this negative, closed-minded stuff, if you give that out there, chances of you ultimately getting this back in return is probably not going to happen. They're going to want to shut down themselves. But so here's what they did. I thought it was kind of interesting. I guess I'll do imaginary. You have to imagine things. What they did is they brought in 2 people at a time who are just self-professed art lovers. Okay, so they just said, we both love art. And they were paid a small little stipend to fill out some surveys on different kind of artwork, and they'd look at this and look at a statue or artwork and just fill it out, no big deal. And what actually was going on was, as the 2 people came in, one person was being studied, and the other person was a research assistant. Okay, the old so really, this person doesn't know that, but they're being completely studied. That's all that's going on. The art is just like a ruse. So they come and they sit down, and it takes about 15 minutes to fill out the whole thing. And halfway through the session, every single time, no matter what, the research assistant would excuse himself or herself and say, "I'll be back in just a second," and just leave the room. And then and they'd come back. So halfway through, they'd always leave, and they'd come back, no big deal. But half the time, they'd return with an ice-cold Coca-Cola for themselves and for the other person, and half the time without. So you can see where this is headed. So they'd come in, and they'd say, "Oh, I thought you might be thirsty." They'd say, in other words, they'd fill it out. And then the other research person comes, "Okay, time's up, we're done." And then as they stand up to leave, then the person, whether they gave the Coke or not, would stand up, the research assistant, and say, "Oh, by the way, my daughter's selling some raffle tickets. Do you want to buy?" Ding! what do you want to do? And all they did was they measured how many raffle tickets were sold and value and that sort of thing. Now, they found three conclusions. One, not surprising at all. Two, very surprising. So the first one was, and see if you can guess, in which scenario did they sell more tickets? With the Coke or without? Yeah, absolutely right. With the Coke, no duh. They sold twice as many tickets, not a big surprise. What did surprise them was the value of the Coke at the time versus the value of the tickets bought was a 1 to 5 ratio. In other words, the Coke was X. The return purchase was 5X. In other words, just 5 times as much in value. So here now we're talking, this is no longer Newtonian physics. We've always heard for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. When it comes to a gift or a favor, and again, energy or whatever you want to give to someone else, the action going out actually comes back stronger, which is kind of interesting. Then here's they took it up a notch, and that was kind of fascinating. They then did a thing where, exact same experiment, people come in, research assistant, they leave, come back with a Coke or without, but this time the research assistant was told to be a completely unlikable, very mean person. Okay, almost like a, wouldn't have worn that today. Or, oh my gosh, ever heard of a breath mint? Or, that just awful stuff, and that's a stupid answer. I mean, just really mean people, just really like unlikable. Oh my gosh, I can't believe you're a horrific person. And they'd still leave and come back with a Coke. And here's the part that blew them out of the water. The amount of purchase tickets and the value did not change based on the personality. They might say, wait a second, that seems weird. What their conclusion was the gift trumped personality. The favor trumped the human interaction, which is very strange. Now, to your original question, if you bring negative energy and you're not really that engaging, then, well, unless you're bringing and giving away Cokes, that's going to be kind of tough, right? So and don't do that. That's not the takeaway, in case you're wondering. But the thought is, but think about what a Coke is. A Coke is others focused. A Coke is a problem solver. The person didn't say, "Oh my gosh, I'm parched." They just thought you might be thirsty. It was happy. It was energizing. It was motivating. It was interesting. I mean, it gave them something. It was positive. So my point to you all is, especially if it takes a lot of energy and it takes a lot of just, you have to kind of psych yourself up, that can happen. But just know it's only for a time. So if you're going to this meeting or going to this networking thing at Switch, or you're going to wherever you find yourself, if you can say, you know what, for the next 2 hours, I'm just going to, I don't care how bad things have been, I'm just going to suck it up, and I'm going to go out there, and I'm going to be focused on them. In fact, make it a little challenge to yourself. Say, hey, can I have people think of me this way? Can I actually make their day? Can I do something really cool for somebody else? And that kind of thing. In fact, one other quick story, and then we'll do one other thing, and then we'll break. I'm notoriously late to the airport. It's just how I roll. Anyway, I like to live on the edge. My record, by the way, post 9/11, 13 minutes. Oh yeah. So I literally, yes. Now I knocked over an old lady. I think I broke some laws. No, but I pulled into the East Terminal at 6:47 for a 7 p.m. flight, or 7, and I made it. But anyway, it was not pretty. I was half naked by the time I got on the plane. Anyway, but here's the thing. I one time went to the airport, and I gave myself plenty of time, more than 13 minutes, but I forgot my wallet, and I was just bummed out. And I was like, I didn't have time to go back home and make the flight, so I said, you know what, I'm going to have to suck it up. This was not Southwest, by the way, so this was an airline that was going to charge me change fare, and this was going to be ugly. So I came back, and I just showed up, and I said, you know what? I walked up to the counter and said, hey, here's the deal. I forgot my wallet, and so here's the deal, and I know it's going to change fare or whatever. And she says, here, give me your info. So she took my driver's license, but driver's license only. I thought, oh, she's going to come back with ugly news. She goes back. She's gone for about 10 minutes, and I'm starting to get worried now I'm going to miss my second flight because what's going on here? And she came back, and she handed me the little folded up thing. She goes, here you go, sir, you're on the next flight out. And I said, whoa, don't I owe something? She says, well, you know what? You seem like a nice guy, and you kind of were honest about what happened, and just don't worry about it. And I said, oh my God. I was just blown away. I started actually tear up a little. I said, if you don't mind me asking, why'd you do that? She says, I wake up, and my goal is every day is to make just one person's day. Isn't that cool? I was like, oh my gosh, I still get goosebumps. Like, come on. I mean, I did not deserve it. I broke the rules. I didn't show up on time. I should have had to pay $75 at minimum, and then whatever the difference in change, because I had to buy a brand new flight that day. And she gave it to me for free. And here's the other cool thing. I was flying to Austin, and there was no direct flights. And so she actually, or I forget where I was going, but she basically cut down my overall my travel time from like 4 hours to 3:15 or something. So that was my point of when you go to an event or you meet somebody or you're talking to someone, can you have that attitude of just let me make just one person's day? Let me because they encountered me today, because they spent time with me, can they feel better off? Even if, let's say, you've had a bad hand dealt to you, you've had some bad stuff happen lately, or whatever else is going on, that's not, their job is not to be for you to unburden yourself on them. I meant to say one other thing about the Damaris White study. You know what the number one turn offer, the number one thing you can do to bum people out when you meet them is what they call negative egocentrism. And negative egocentrism is talking to strangers about your problems. So you've ever met that person, like, how you doing? And you say, fine. Say, how you doing? They go, oh, not too well. That kind of person. You're like, oh, yeah. And they unload. Now, I have no problem with you talking to people about things that are going in life. I want you to be honest and real. But with friends who you've built up a relationship with, you have some goodwill built up, that sort of thing. But to meet someone from out of the blue and you just kind of unload on them, that's the part where they say, you got to be kidding me, please. You hope for the fire alarm to go off or the threat level to get raised or something, or the power to go out, but you want to have that be your attitude. Yes?